Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The harsh wind swept across the barren desert landscape, kicking up spirals of sand and dust. Beneath the fading twilight, a forgotten facility stood like a sentinel, silent secret, and abandoned by those who feared the truth. Inside, where the air was thick with the stench of failure, Bruce Banner moved silently through dimly lit hallways, his heart heavy with the burden of his past. The eerie quiet was familiar, unsettling, and it brought memories of times when he was a monster of his own making. Bruce had spent years trying to distance himself from the Hulk, from the gamma radiation that coursed through his veins, but the world never let him escape. This time, it was a whisper on the wind, rumors of experiments using gamma energy in the government's relentless pursuit of a perfect soldier. That's why he was here, moving quietly through the shadows of this remote facility, hoping to stop another disaster before it began. His earpiece crackled softly. "Banner, I think I've found something." Peter Parker's sass voice was a breath of relief in the oppressive silence. Young, hopeful, and impossibly resilient, Peter was everything Bruce once was. But by age, shared responsibility for powers they never asked for. "Where are you?" Bruce's voice was low, cautious. "Second floor, Lab C. You're going to want to see this." Banner quickened his pace. Lab C was deep within the facility, hidden behind layers of security and the stench of secrecy. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. The last time he encountered a facility like this, it had ended in death, destruction, and a Hulk rampage that nearly leveled an entire town. As he turned a corner, the dim glow of Peter Si's light greeted him. The young man, clad in his red and blue Spider-Man suit, was crouched over a console, his eyes flicking rapidly between the screen. Bruce stepped forward, his breath shallow as he took in the sight before him. On the screen were images, x-rays, medical reports, and thermal scans of men soldiers twisted into monstrous shape. Their bodies were racked with gamma mutations, muscles swollen and deformed, skin tinted with a sickly green glow. Their faces, contorted in pain, stared blankly at the camera. Soldiers who had signed up to be heroes now looked like nightmares. They were trying to replicate the serum. Schweitzer said quietly, his voice filled with an uncomfortable realization. They were using gamma radiation to create super soldiers, but something went wrong. Bruce swallowed hard. He had seen this before. He was living proof of what gamma radiation could do when it was mishandled. The Hulk was the result of one man's ambition, but this was something else. "I should have seen this coming," Bruce muttered, rubbing a hand over his weary face. "They used my research, they used me as a blueprint." Peter glanced up at him, concern etched in his youthful face. "Tara, but this wasn't you, Bruce. You did do this. They did." Bruce wanted to believe that, but the guilt clung to him like a shadow. He knew that no matter how far he ran, the Hulk would always be used as a weapon, a cautionary tale, or worse, a blueprint for something even more dangerous. Peter continued tapping at the console, pulling up more data. "It looks like the soldiers were exposed to unstable gamma isotope. Their bodies couldn't handle it. The mutations say," he paused, his fingers stilling. "They were not in control, Bruce. These guys, they were ticking time bombs." There was a countdown, buried deep in the code of the experiment, the log. Each of the soldiers' vitals was being monitored in real time, and the readings were off the chart. Heart rates spiked, gamma radiation levels surged, and the data screamed one inevitable truth. These soldiers were about to explode. "How much time do we have?" Bruce asked, his voice tight with urgency. "Not long," Peter said, pulling up a map of the facility. "Yuri, maybe an hour or two at most. If we don't do something soon, the gamma energy in their bodies is going to overload, and they'll blow like gamma bombs too." Bruce's stomach twisted. Peter nodded, already swinging into action. He fired a web line at the ceiling and vaulted forward, disappearing into the darkness ahead. Bruce followed, his mind racing. There had to be a way to reverse the mutations to stabilize the soldiers before their bodies gave out. As they descended deeper into the facility, the air grew thick with the smell of burning metal and ozone. The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the wall. Somewhere deep in the bowels of the facility, the soldiers, or what remained of them, were lurking, their bodies breaking down under the strain of uncontrollable power. Bruce Peter called back from ahead, their movement up ahead. They slowed their pace, approaching the massive containment chamber at the heart of the facility. The doors were reinforced steel, but they had been torn apart as though they were paper. Beyond the wreckage, the sounds of heavy breathing and low rumbling growls filled the air. Bruce's heart pounded in his chest as they entered the chamber. Inside, the Gamma soldiers were clustered together, their bodies swollen with radiation. They looked more like creatures than men, their eyes glowing with an unnatural green light. Their muscles bulged, veins pulsing with energy that was barely contained beneath their skin. One of the soldiers turned, its glowing eyes locking onto Bruce. It let out a guttural roar, sound vibrating through the air like an earthquake. The creature lunged forward, but its movements were slow, heavy, as though it was fighting against its own body. Peter moved in a blur, swinging across the chamber and firing webs to slow the creature down. Bruce, any ideas? He called out, dodging the Gamma-enhanced soldier's massive fist. Bruce's mind raced. He couldn't just let these men die, but he couldn't allow them to rampage either. If their Gamma energy wasn't destabilized soon, they would destroy everything around them. Get them to the suppression chamber, Bruce shouted, pointing to a large cylindrical device in the corner of the room. Say it isn't the only thing in this place that can contain them. Peter nodded and began maneuvering the soldiers toward the chamber, using his agility to stay ahead of their sluggish but powerful movement. Meanwhile, Bruce ran to the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys as he activated the containment protocol. The massive chamber roared to life, energy fields sparking as they tried to lock onto the soldier. But the Gamma radiation was too unstable. The chamber wasn't designed to hold this much power. Bruce cursed under his breath. It's not going to hold. Peter swung down next to him, breathless. What do we do? Bruce's mind raced. There was one option, but it was dangerous for both of them. He would have to absorb the Gamma radiation from the soldiers into himself. It was a gamble, one that could push him over the edge, but it was their only shot at saving these men. I'll have to absorb their Gamma energies, Bruce said, his voice low, almost defeated. Peter's eyes widened. Are you sure that's a good idea? I mean, no offense, but that sounds like a Hulk-level disaster waiting to happen. Bruce nodded grimly. I know, but it's the only way to save them. Peter hesitated, then nodded. Oh, okay. What do you need me to do? I'll need you to set up a Gamma suppression field, Bruce explained. It'll help regulate the energy as I absorb it, but once I start, there's no going back. Peter's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. Ari, got it. Let us do this. Together, they moved quickly, setting up the suppression field with the limited equipment they had at their disposal. Bruce could feel the tension building in his chest, the anticipation of what was about to happen weighing heavily on him. He had fought the Hulk for years, trying to keep him under control, but now he was willingly about to invite that power in tenfold. Peter finished rigging the device, and Bruce stepped into the containment chamber. He took a deep breath, his muscles tensing as he prepared for the surge of Gamma energy. The soldiers, still growling and struggling against their own bodies, turned toward him, their eyes glowing with unbridled rage. Okay, Banner, Peter called from the control panel. Found you were good to go. Just try not to explode. Okay. Bruce let out a shaky breath and closed his eyes. He could feel the Gamma radiation pulsing through the air, the energy vibrating against his skin. Slowly, he extended his arms, reaching out toward the soldiers, pulling their energy toward him. The Gamma energy surged toward Bruce, a force like a tidal wave crashing into him. His skin tingled, the air around him thickening with the unbearable pressure of it all. He had absorbed Gamma radiation before become the Hulk because of it, but this was different. This time the energy wasn't his own. It was wild, chaotic, and uncontrollable, trying to rip through him as though it had a mind of its own. His muscles clenched, veins bulging as the Gamma energy fought to break free. The Hulk stirred within him, the familiar growl rumbling in his chest. The beast was always there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the smallest crack in Bruce's control to tear its way out. And now with this much power being forced into him, Bruce wasn't sure if he could hold it back. The soldiers, their bodies, now almost entirely drained of Gamma energy, collapsed one by one, their monstrous forms slowly reverting to something more human. Their breathing steadied, the wild glow in their eyes dimming as the immediate danger passed. But as the soldiers stabilized, Bruce's own stability crumbled. Peter watched from the control room, his fingers twitching over the suppression field control. Bruce, talk to me. Are you okay? His voice cracked with words. Bruce couldn't answer. He was on his knees fighting to keep his body from transforming. The Hulk roared inside him, clawing at the walls Bruce had built to keep him contained. It wasn't just the power. This time it was the rage, the unrelenting fury that came with it. The Hulk wanted out, and Bruce didn't know if he could stop him. Banner Beater's voice was louder now, more insistent. Yeah, I can increase the suppression field, but I don't know how long it'll hold. Bruce clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. How could I increase it yet? Sorry, he managed to grunt through gritted teeth. Dave, I can't control it. He wasn't sure if that was true. He wasn't sure of anything anymore. The only thing Bruce knew for certain was that if he let go, if he allowed the Hulk to take over with all this gamma energy fueling him, there might not be a facility left standing by the end of it. There might not be anything left at all. Peter hovered his hand over the controls, ready to act if things went sideways. Just give me the word, Bruce. The room felt like it was spinning, the world narrowing down to the battle raging inside Bruce's mind. He couldn't afford to lose. Not now, not after everything they could know. Slowly, with agonizing effort, Bruce forced himself to his feet, his muscles trembling under the strain. Almost there, he whispered, more to himself than to Peter. The soldiers were all unconscious now, their bodies stable. The gamma energy that had once twisted them into monsters was now inside Bruce, barely contained. He needed to release it, but he couldn't do it. Here, the suppression chamber wasn't built to handle this kind of power, and if it failed, they'd be right back where they started, only worse. We need to get out of here, Bruce said, his voice low and strained. Peter nodded, already moving. I'll get the soldiers to safety. You focus on keeping yourself in one piece, okay? Bruce barely acknowledged him. His focus was slipping. The Hulk pushing harder, angrier, the beast furious at being denied its freedom. Every second that passed was a battle, every breath a test of his willpower. The facility groaned as they moved through it, the walls shaking with the residual energy of the experiment. Peter worked quickly, webbing the unconscious soldiers to safety as he moved them out of the gamma containment chamber. The moment they were clear, Bruce stumbled out, his body burning with the strain of holding back the Hulk. He couldn't keep this up for long. Peter swung back down to him, landing lightly by his side. We need to get you somewhere safe, where you can release the gamma energy without blowing up half the desert. Bruce nodded, but his thoughts were a blur. He had only one option, the nearby mountain. If he could get far enough away, he could release the energy safely without endangering anyone else. Right for now. See, Bruce rasped. Freya, I need to get to the mountain. Peter didn't need to be told twice. He shot a web line to the nearest wall and swung Bruce's arm over his shoulder. Hang on, big guy. I've got you. Together, they moved as fast as they could, Peter swinging them both across the desert landscape toward the distant peak. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the burning heat coursing through Bruce's veins. His vision blurred, sweat dripping from his forehead as he fought to hold on. The mountains loomed ahead, jagged and imposing against the dark sky. Peter landed at the base of the largest peak, setting Bruce down gently.
Okay.
Peter said, breathless.
True.
This is it. You ready? Bruce wasn't ready. He would never be ready for this, but there was no choice. He had to let go or the energy would consume him entirely. I'll manage, Bruce said, his voice barely a whisper. Peter stepped back, watching with a mixture of awe and fear as Bruce began to concentrate, drawing the gamma energy into a single point within his body. The Hulk roared inside him, demanding release, and this time Bruce did stop him. The transformation was violent, like a dam bursting. Bruce's body exploded with gamma radiation, his skin tearing and reforming. As the Hulk tore its way out, green lights illuminated the mountainside as Bruce's form grew larger, more monstrous with every second. His skin darkened to an enraged green, his muscles swelling with the uncontrollable power. The Hulk bellowed, the sound echoing across the desert like thunder. The gamma energy pulsed through him, crackling and shimmering in the night air. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the Hulk might destroy everything in his path. But then, slowly, the energy began to dissipate. The Hulk, breathing heavily, stood still on the mountainside, his enormous hands clenched into fists. The gamma energy that had once threatened to tear Bruce apart now radiated outward, dispersing harmlessly into the atmosphere. Peter watched, wide-eyed, as the Hulk's massive form began to shrink, the green glow fading as Bruce regained control. The transformation reversed itself, muscle shrinking, skin returning to its normal shape. When it was over, Bruce was kneeling on the ground, panting, his body soaked in sweat. Peter approached cautiously, his heart still pounding.
Bruce, you okay?
Bruce nodded weakly, his breath ragged. Yeah, I think so. Peter let out a long breath, a grin spreading across his face. Ari, that was insane, but you did it. Bruce managed a tired smile. Thanks for sticking around. Peter helped him to his feet, the tension finally easing. Kara, hey, you don't get rid of me that easy. Besides someone, it's gotta make sure you don't hulk out and destroy the plate. Bruce chuckled weakly. Yeah, good thing you were here. They stood together for a moment, the cool desert wind washing over them as the danger passed. But even as they caught their breath, Bruce's mind was already racing ahead. The soldiers were safe for now, but the experiment had left scars that wouldn't heal easily. And the people behind it, the ones pulling the strings, were still out there.
Peter, Bruce said quietly, "This isn't he over there."
Still a lot we don't know about what happened back there. Peter's expression sobered. Yeah, I figured. You think the people running this thing are going to come after us? Bruce nodded. I didn't bet on it, but we'll be ready for them. The weight of their shared responsibility settled between them, but it no longer felt like a burden. It felt like a promise to each other and to the world they had vowed to protect. As they walked back toward the facility, the first rays of dawn began to break over the horizon. The fight wasn't really over, not by a long shot, but for now, they had won this battle, and together they'd be ready for whatever came next.